Alright students, welcome back to our Scratch tutorial series. Today, we're going to work on getting our title screen, or our start screen, in our app and working, so that when we press the green start flag, it begins on that screen, and to get to the game, you have to click start. The first thing we're going to do is change this when flag clicked, the one that sets the position and costume of our character. Instead of when flag clicked, we're going to use when backdrop switches to. We're going to be doing this a lot today and tomorrow when we add the other backgrounds into our app. So if we bring this in and we switch the go to X and Y, we can get rid of the when flag clicked. And then now we want to set this to be the first actual map in our game. You'll see some options here to change which backdrop we want to start this set of code. In this case, I want it set to cave start because that's the map that I have that's set to be my first map. So when we switch to this map, cave start, it should go to X equals this, Y equals this. It should switch the costume and set the last direction. There's one more element that we're going to need, and that is under looks. And we're going to grab a show element. Show and hide make it so that an element is actually visible. We want to show it after it has done all of these things because we're going to have it hidden on our main screen. This should work for our setup, but there's some code that we should add to the stages themselves. So if I click on the backdrops here, you'll see that it has its own section for code as well. This section can be good for code that happens everywhere in your game, but maybe doesn't affect your main character, or your main character isn't visible on that page or on that screen. For example, we're going to want a when flag clicked, and then we're going to want to, again, switch the backdrop to the Cave of Many Worlds. If you look, there's two here. You may not be able to see what each of them is, but if you pull them in, you'll see this one also waits. We don't want the one that's going to have a wait, so I'm going to put that back. We're going to use the switched backdrop, and this means whenever your game starts, you press the green flag, it will automatically switch it to be this title backdrop. If I hit play, you'll see what that looks like. There it is. But you'll notice that my main character is still visible. Let's go click on our main character, and then we need to add to one of these when clicked a hide option. Hide. Now, when the flag is clicked, it will automatically hide this character. He won't be visible until it switches back to the first map, and then this character will become visible again. So now, when we click play, you'll see our character disappears. We're on our main screen, but I can't actually click start to go to the next screen. There's also, you'll notice, these variables in the top left, and they're kind of covering up part of my title, so I want to hide them. If I go down to the variables section, you'll see there are check marks by the variables that I've made. If I uncheck them, then it won't show me them on the screen, and they won't be blocking that part of my main screen. So, to make our start button clickable, we need to add another element here. We're going to paint an element. This element we can name to be button. We're going to make it a button. And we're going to add a shape. In this case, I want it to be maybe here. That's not quite right, but I can move it so that it covers up. I'm actually going to make it just in the center. And then I'm going to move it on the screen so that it covers up that start button. I'm actually going to name the sprite to be button as well, so it's very clear. I could have it set to be different costumes for different buttons if I wanted. So I could have one that's a rectangle shape like this, maybe another one that's a circle, and then I could use it several times. But in this case, I think this one button will probably work for most of the things that I'm going to be using it for. Okay, let's go back to the code section. And we need to add a few options to this button. First, we need to add an option that makes it show up when the game is started and it's on this Cave of Many Worlds. We could do this with the when flag is clicked or when background switches to that cave title screen. In this case, I'm going to do when backdrop switches so that if later in the app we have it go back to the main menu, this will still work. I'm going to set it to my title screen. So now when this screen shows up, we can make this button visible. Let's go to looks and add that show block in. While we want it to show so that we can click on it, we don't actually want to see it. So again, just like with our collision, we're going to be adding a set effect to, and we're going to change this to ghost and make it 99.999. This way, when the backdrop switches to here, it'll show up, but nearly invisibly. We need to add another event, which is when this sprite is clicked. When it's clicked, we want it to do a few different things. First, we want it to switch the background, which we can do up here. Switch backdrop to, and we're going to switch the backdrop instead of to Cave of Many Worlds title. I want it to be to Cave Start. So now if I click on this button, it should go to the Cave Start page. Let's see if that happens. I click play. The button's maybe there, but invisible. I click on it, and there we go. It switched to the other screen. However, you'll see that when I click this part of the screen, this part of the code flashes because it's still running. So the last thing I need to do is also hide the button. So now when I click on it, it switches the backdrop to Cave Start, but it also hid this button. It's no longer there. And now, like usual, I can move around my screen. That is the process for setting up our start page. Every time we click on the start button up here, it should go to our title screen, and then we should be able to click on the start button and go to our main page. Thank you for joining me for this video. Tomorrow, we're going to focus on how do you connect one map that you can walk around on to another map and start building out the rest of our game world. See you tomorrow.